Jai. So we are reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishna Kaviraj Goswami. Oops. Translations and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarane. Adi-lila, Chapter 5, The Glories of Lord Nityananda Balaram. We are in the middle of text 41, purport. We left off where it says in the Bhagavad Gita, right?
Yes.
Okay. Page 463 in mine. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Lord, being equally disposed towards every living being, has no enemies and no friends, but that he has special affection for a devotee who always thinks of him in love. Therefore, neutrality and partiality are both among the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and they are properly adjusted by his inconceivable energy. The Lord is Para-Brahman, or the source of the impersonal Brahma, which is his all-pervading feature of neutrality. In his personal feature, however, as the owner of all transcendental opulences, the Lord displays his partiality by taking the side of his devotees. Partiality, neutrality, and all such qualities are present in God, otherwise they could not be experienced in the creation. Since he is the total existence, all things are properly adjusted in the absolute. In the relative world, such qualities are displayed in a perverted manner, and therefore we experience non-duality as a perverted reflection. Because there is no logic to explain how things happen in the realm of spirit, the Lord is sometimes described as being beyond the range of experience. But if we simply accept the Lord's inconceivability, we can then adjust all things in him. Non-devotees cannot understand the Lord's inconceivable energy, and consequently for them, it is said that he is beyond the range of conceivable expression. The author of the Brahma Sutras accepts this fact and says, Shutes tu shabda mulat bhat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead being inconceivable to an ordinary man can be understood only through the evidence of the Vedic injunctions. The Skanda Purana confirms Achintya Kalu Ye Bhava Natams Tarkena Yojayat. Matters inconceivable to a common man should not be a subject for argument. In other words, if you can't understand it, don't argue about it. Just leave it alone. We find very wonderful qualities, even in such material things as jewels and drugs. Indeed, their qualities often appear inconceivable. Therefore, if we do not attribute inconceivable potencies to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we cannot establish his supremacy. It is because of these inconceivable potencies that the glories of the Lord have always been accepted as difficult to understand. So, there's some nice points here about how Krishna's different features, right? His feature as the all-pervading Para-Brahman, the Supreme all-pervasive soul. And in that sense, the Lord is neutral. Because that verse in Bhagavad Gita says, Krishna says, Samoham sarvabhuteshu, na me dvesho stina priyaha. He says, I'm equal to everyone. I don't hate anyone. I don't love anyone. I'm just equal to everyone. And then he says, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion is in me, is a friend, is in me, and I'm also a friend to him. So the first two lines are in regard to the all-pervading feature in which he's neutral, right? So as Brahman, the all-pervading Para-Brahman, he's neutral. But as the person, Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, he is partial to his devotees. So that's what it means to be a person. That when you're a person, you tend to be partial. You're partial to some things, right? You like this, you don't like that. You prefer this, you prefer this kind of food, you don't like that one so much. You like this weather, you don't like that weather, like that. So people have preferences and partialities and biases and things. That's just what it means to be a person. So that's the quality of the Supreme Person, that he likes his devotees. He loves everyone, but he likes his devotees more, in a special affection for his devotees. So that's one point here that the Mayavadis can't understand because they don't accept the Lord as a person. So then they can't understand. It seems contradictory. How can you be neutral and partial at the same time? right? For them, it's like, what? This doesn't make any sense at all. And but it's like, well, if you understood that God has these different features, and one feature is neutral and another feature is partial, then it's very clear.
Partial to his devotee.
Yeah. And then he makes this other point about Krishna's being inconceivable. So, yeah, it says that there's no logic to explain how things happen in the realm of spirit. So if we try to apply our logic to Krishna, it's going to fall short, right? Because Krishna doesn't work in ways that tally with material, mundane logic. And yeah, he says that there are even things in this material world which are inconceivable, which we can't understand. So what to speak of Krishna? If Krishna is superior, usually things are inconceivable when they're above and beyond you, right? When they're just, yeah, something that's very simple, very basic, that's inferior, you can take apart, you can figure it out, you can study it, you can understand its qualities based on, its chemical properties and its, observable features and things like that. But something that's subtle, that you can't see, you can't feel, you can't smell, you can't measure with your scientific instruments, then it's hard to understand, right? Like, yeah, just things like human psychology, right? There's many, so complicated, it's hard to understand all the complexities of it. Sometimes just people are inconceivable, right? And Prabhupada says that even things like jewels, that the way that different crystals and different gems have different qualities that influence your physical health and your mind, and they create energies about them that affect the atmosphere. It's like, how does a rock do that? But it's kind of inconceivable. Or how drugs work in the body, how different medicines work. So if even these things are inconceivable, what about Krishna? He has to be even more inconceivable. He has to be highly inconceivable. Otherwise, he's not God. So, yeah. And if something is inconceivable, we shouldn't try to argue with it. Na tams tarkena yojayat. Tarka means logic. Don't try to use logic to understand something which is inconceivable. It's not going to work. So that's one of the arguments that is lodged against a counter argument to the Mayavadis. Okay, let's go ahead, Mother Vaidini.
Ignorance and the jugglery of the words are very common in human society, but they do not help one understand the inconceivable energies of the Supreme Personality of God. If we accept such ignorance and the word jugglery, we cannot accept the Supreme Lord's perfection, 6 appearances. For example, one of the appearances of Supreme Lord is the complete knowledge. And therefore, how could ignorance be conceivable in him? Vedic instructions and the sensible arguments establish that the Lord's maintaining the cosmic manifestation, simultaneously being indifferent to the activities of his maintenance, cannot be contradictory. Because of his inconceivable energies, to a person who is always absorbed in the thoughts of snakes, a rope is always appears to be a snake. And similarly, to a person bewildered by material qualities and devoid of knowledge and the absolute, devoid of the knowledge of the absolute, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears according to the diverse bewildered conclusions.
Yeah, so basically we see things according to what we believe, right? If we believe something to be true, even if it's not true, we will see it as true.
Yes.
Right? Like if we're afraid of snakes and we're thinking that there's snakes all over the side of the road and we're walking down the road and we see a rope, we're gonna, a snake. All right.
Yeah, anything similar.
Because we're believing that this area is snake infested.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas if you know that there's no snakes in this area, you walk that place every day and there's no snakes, and just understanding the ecosystem and things, that there's no snakes in that area. You see a rope, you're not going to be scared. You're not going to think it's a snake, because you're not expecting snakes. You're not thinking about snakes at all. You'll be like, oh, some rope fell off somebody's car. So like that, when we think something is happening and we believe it strongly enough, then we start seeing it, even if it's not happening. That happens.
So
Okay.
Not to say that right our senses are like our senses are
Defective,
defective.
imperfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we literally like see things or we think we heard something that we didn't hear properly because the senses are not so not precision instruments. Yeah, but it's just funny how our consciousness affects things. And that's like sometimes if you hear some rumor about a person before you meet them, you hear somebody saying something, oh, that person is like this, they have these qualities, and watch out, or whatever. Then you meet the person and everything that they do is just confirming what that person told you,
Yeah.
even if they're not, you know what I mean? But you
Yeah.
you read it that way. That's how you interpret what they're doing, is that they're like that. So that's why it's better to, take people at keep an open mind and be what's the word? Unbiased as far as possible. Although as humans, it's difficult. Okay. Aruna, would you like to read?
Yes.
Someone might argue that the absolute would be affected by duality if we were both all cognizance, Brahman and the Bhagavan. With such an argument, the aphorism Swarupa Dvayam Ikshate declares that in spite of appearances, there is no chance of duality in the absolute, for he is but one in diverse manifestations. Understanding that the absolute stays where at pastimes by the influence of his energies at once removes the apparent incongruity of his inconceivably opposite energies. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, Text 16 gives the following description of the inconceivable potency of the God. Although the Supreme Personality of God has had nothing to do, he nevertheless acts, although he is always on point. He nevertheless takes birth, although he is time fearful to everyone. He flees Mathura in fear of his enemy to take shelter in a woman. And although he is self-sufficient, he married 16,000 women. This pastime seems like bewildering contradictions, even to the most intelligent. Had these activities of the Lord not been a reality, sages would not have been puzzled by them. Therefore, such activities should never be considered imaginary. Whenever the Lord desires his inconceivable energy, Yog Maya serves him in creating and performing such pastimes.
Yeah, so Krishna, he's very interesting. That he's omniscient, right? He's all-knowing, but then he forgets that he's God. By his potencies, by his yoga maya potencies, he becomes covered because of his own desire to enjoy intimate exchanges with his mother, with his friends, like that. So and then it looks contradictory to people who know that he's God. Well, how is it that he's God? He's feared by fear personified, and yet he's running away from what's his name? Kalyavana in Mathura. He's running away from Mother Yashoda, who's chasing him with a stick. And yeah.
Sufficient, but my 16,000
As if he's needy, right? As if he's feeling incomplete. So, yeah, this is all Krishna's pastimes. Okay, let's go ahead, Bhagati.
The scriptures known as the Pancharatra Shastra are recognized Vedic scriptures that have been accepted by the great acharyas. These scriptures are not products of the modes of passion and ignorance. Learned scholars and brahmanas therefore always refer to them as Sattva Samhitas. The original speaker of these scriptures is Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is especially mentioned in the Moksha Dharma 349-68, which is part of the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharat liberated sages like Narad and Vyasa, who are free from the four defects of conditioned souls, are the propagators of these scriptures. Sri Narad Muni is the original speaker of the Pancharatra Shastra. Srimad Bhagavatam is also considered a Satvata Samhita. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared Srimad Bhagavatam Puran Amalam. Srimad Bhagavatam is a spotless Puran. Malicious editors and scholars who attempt to misrepresent the Pancharatra Shastra to refute their regulations are most abominable. In the modern age, such malicious scholars have been commented misleadingly upon the Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken by Krishna to prove that there is no Krishna. How the Mayavadis have misrepresented the Pancharatrika Vidhi will be shown below.
Reminds me of when Lord Chaitanya was meeting with, I think it was Prakashananda Saraswati, leader of the Mayavadis. Oh no, it was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So at that time, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was an impersonalist. And he invited Lord Chaitanya over to like, well, let's discuss Vedanta. So then Lord Chaitanya came over, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was older. He was maybe like, like almost like a father, age of his father. So Lord Chaitanya was a young sannyasi. He was only in his 20s. So he was 24 when he took sannyas. So he was a young sannyasi, and he had just come to Puri, and he was like new boy. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a very respected, highly elevated scholar, very learned in Shastra. He was like the leader of the Brahminical community there. And so when he, said, let's get together and speak Vedanta, it was assumed that, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was going to speak and Lord Chaitanya was going to listen. So that's what Lord Chaitanya did out of respect. He sat down and he just listened to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya speak.
7 days?
7 days, yeah, day after day after day. And he was just listening. He didn't make any comments. He didn't ask any questions. He was just hearing him out. And then after 7 days, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was feeling like a little frustrated, like, why is it that you're not like, saying anything? Are you not understanding? You're just sitting there as if you're kind of dull, you're not getting it, or you're not engaging with what I'm saying at all. So I feel like, I want to know, like, what is your understanding? And then Lord Chaitanya said, he said that the philosophy of the Vedanta Sutras is as clear as the sun in the sky, but you have your interpretations have obscured it like dark clouds.
They're covering the sun.
Yeah, covering the true meaning of the Vedanta Sutra. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a little taken aback by that, and he was like, "Oh, so then how would you explain it?" And so Lord Chaitanya is like that. Now he got the chance to speak, and then he just gave very clear, bhakti, explaining that all these Vedas are meant to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that we are souls, eternal servants of Krishna, and to inspire us to engage in devotional service to Krishna, reestablish our lost relationship, and go back home, back to Godhead, and serve Krishna eternally. And basically all the, the main tenets of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. And when he said all that, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was just like, because it was so clear. It was like so clear and so simple. Prabhupada said that the Krishna consciousness is so simple, you could miss it, right? It's just so simple. So these scholars, they would come with very complicated philosophical explanations and all this, that, and twisting this, that, and what it really means is this, and and then it comes out just so confusing and bewildering. And Lord Chaitanya very quickly, he didn't need 7 days. He probably said the whole thing in like 7 minutes. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was just like, wow.
And he remembers each sloka and he explains each sloka.
Oh, that was the Atmarama verse. Yeah, that was Atmarama verse. So at the end, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very impressed and he became a Vaishnava. He gave up his impersonalism right there on the spot. So it reminds me of that Prabhupada is saying here that the Pancharatra Shastras, these are pure Shastras, Sattvata Samhitas. Sattvata means, pure goodness. And especially the Srimad Bhagavatam is Puranam Amalam. It's without any material tinge. And it's just very pure, very clear. And these malicious editors and scholars, they try to misinterpret it. And they come out with some philosophies and practices which are most abominable. Prabhupada says. So that's why Prabhupada wanted to give Bhagavad Gita as it is, right? And he gave us also Srimad Bhagavatam as it is, following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. Okay, so now Prabhupada is going to explain how these Mayavadis have misinterpreted, misrepresented the Pancharatrika Vidhi. So he's going to go point by point here. For how many points has he got? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 points. It's going to take us to the end of the purport. Okay, so let's see. Kritika, would you like to read number 1?
Yes. In commenting on Vedanta Sutra, Sripad Shankaracharya has claimed that Sankarshan is a jiva, an ordinary living entity, but there is no evidence in any Vedic scripture that devotees of the Lord have ever said that Sankarshan is an ordinary living entity. He is an infallible plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Vishnu category, and he is beyond the creation of material nature. He is the original source of the living entities. The Upanishads declare Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. He is the supreme living entity among all the living entities. Therefore, he is Vibhu Chaitanya, the greatest. He is directly the cause of cosmic manifestation and the infinitesimal living beings. He is the infinite living entity, and ordinary living entities are infinitesimal. Therefore, he is never to be considered an ordinary living being, for that would be against the conclusion of the authorized scriptures. The living entities are also beyond the limitation of birth and death. This is the version of the Vedas, and it is accepted by those who follow scriptural injunctions and who have actually descended in the disciplinic succession.
Okay, so first thing is that Sankarshan is not a jiva, he is Vishnu Tattva.
Mhm.
And then if you understand that he's Vishnu Tattva, then you can understand all the other things about him, which the Mayavadis don't understand. Okay, number 2, Divya?
In answer to Shankaracharya's commentary on Vedanta Sutra 2243, it must be said that the original Vishnu of all the Vishnu categories, which are distributed in several ways, is Mula Sankarshan. Mula means the original. Sankarshan is also Vishnu, but from him all other Vishnus expand. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 546, wherein it is said that just as a flame transferred from another flame acts like the original, so the Vishnus who emanate from Mula Sankarshan are as good as the original Vishnu. One should worship that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who thus expands himself.
Yeah, so the Mayavadis can't understand how Lord Vishnu can expand himself into other Vishnus, and that's why he's thinking that all these expansions must be jivas. But no, Krishna can expand himself, and they can all be Vishnu Tattva. Okay, 3, Nikesh?
In reply to the commentary of Sankaracharya on the 44th aphorism, it may be said that no pure devotees strictly following the principle of the Pancharatra will ever accept the statement that all the expansion of Vishnus are different identities, for this idea is completely false. Even Sripada Sankaracharya, in his commentary on the 42nd aphorism, has accepted that the personality of Godhead can automatically expand himself variously. Therefore, his commentary on the 42nd aphorism and his commentary on the 44th aphorism are contradictory. It is a defect of Mayavada commentaries that they make one statement in one place and a contradictory statement in another place as a tactic to refute the Bhagavata school. Thus, Mayavadi commentators do not even follow regulative principles. It should be noted that the Bhagavata school accepts the quadruple forms of Narayana, but that does not mean that it accepts many gods. Devotees know perfectly well that the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is one without a second. They are never pantheist worshippers of many gods, for this is against the injunction of the Vedas. Devotees completely believe with strong faith that Narayana is transcendental and has inconceivable proprietorship of various transcendental potencies. We therefore recommend that scholars consult the Lagu Bhagavatamrita of Srila Rupa Goswami, where these ideas are explicitly stated. Sripada Sankaracharya has tried to prove that Vasudeva, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha expand through cause and effect. He has compared them with earth and earthen pots. That is completely ignorant. However, for there is no such thing as cause and effect in their expansions. Nanyad yat sad asat param. The Kurma Purana also confirms Deha Dehi Vivedo Yam Nisarve Vidyate Kvavisit. There is no difference between body and soul in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Cause and effect are material. For example, it is seen that a father's body is the cause of a son's body, but the soul is neither cause nor effect. On the spiritual platform, there are none of the differences we find in cause and effect. Since all the forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are spiritually supreme, they are equally controllers of material nature. Standing on the fourth dimension, they are predominating figures on the transcendental platform. There is no trace of material contamination in their expansions because material laws cannot influence them. There is no such rule as cause and effect outside of the material world. Therefore, the understanding of cause and effect cannot approach the full, transcendental, complete expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vedic literature proves this. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as his phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete by itself, because he is the complete whole. Even though so many complete unites emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Brad Radharani Upanishad 5.1. It is most apparent that non-devotees violate the rules and regulations of devotional service to equate the whole cosmic manifestation, which is the external feature of Vishnu, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the controller of Maya, or with his quadruple expansion. Equating Maya with spirit or Maya with the Lord is a sign of atheism. The cosmic creation, which manifests life in forms from Brahma to the ant, is the external feature of the Supreme Lord. It comprises one-fourth of the Lord's energy, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Ekam Sena Stito Jagat. The cosmic manifestation of the illusionary energy is material nature, and everything within material nature is made of matter. Therefore, one should not try to compare the expansions of material nature to the Chaturvyuha, the quadruple expansions of the personality of Godhead. But unfortunately, the Mayavadi school unreasonably attempts to do this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so a couple of things that Prabhupada is bringing out here. First is that the Mayavadis contradict themselves. So in in 2242, which is number 1 here, they're saying that Sankarsana is a jiva, right? Which is not true. He's actually Vishnu Tattva. But they say he's a jiva. But then in their commentary to 2244, 43, they say that, that the different forms of the Lord are all different identities. So does that mean there are many gods? So on the one says saying that he's not, Sankarsana is not God, he's a jiva, and then they contradict themselves with another argument that, oh, you're saying that there are many gods because Sankarsana is God. But if you believe that Sankarsana is not God, why would you be? It's no longer a point, right? So it's contradictory. And then the other thing here is that they're comparing the expansions of the Vishnu Tattva expansions of the Lord to material things, and they're not material. So material things, everything has this, everything, they're laws of cause and effect, right? It gives the example that the Father's body is the cause of the Son's body. So everything is caused by something else, and everything is effect of something else. But even though the Father's body may be the cause of the Son's body, the Father's body is not the cause of the soul. The soul was always existing. So spirit doesn't have cause. And the soul doesn't have cause because the soul always existed, is eternal in the present, eternal in the past, eternal in the future. And it's not caused by something else. It just is like that. So all these Vishnu Tattva, if even we don't have a cause as souls, what to speak of the Vishnu Tattva who are totally spiritual, like even they don't even have material bodies. There's nothing material about them. They're just spiritual through and through. They're not caused by anything. They just exist. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so then he ends by saying, one should not try to compare the expansions of material nature to the Chaturvyuha, the Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva. Okay, then text, the argument 4. What do we have out there? Sneha?
Yeah. To answer Shankaracharya's commentary on Vedanta Sutra 22.45, the substance of the transcendental qualities and their spiritual nature is described in the Lagu Bhagavat Amrita as follows. Some say that transcendence must be void of all qualities because qualities are manifested only in matter. According to them, all qualities are temporary, flickering in mirages. But this is
Mirages.
Huh? Okay, mirage is okay. But this is not acceptable. Since the supreme personality of Godhead is absolute, his qualities are non different from him. His form, name, qualities, and everything else pertaining to him are as spiritual as he is. Every qualitative expansion of the absolute personality of Godhead is identical with him. Since the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead is a reservoir of all pleasures, all the transcendental qualities that expand from him are also reservoirs of pleasure. This is confirmed in the scripture known as Brahmatarka, which states that the Supreme Lord Hari is qualified by himself, and therefore Vishnu and his pure devotees and their transcendental qualities cannot be different from their persons. In the Vishnu Purana, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in the following words: Let the Supreme Personality of Godhead be merciful toward us. His existence is never infected by material qualities. In the same Vishnu Purana, it is also said that all the qualities attributed to the Supreme Lord, such as knowledge, opulence, beauty, strength, and influence, are known to be non different from him. This is also confirmed in the Padma Purana, which explains that whenever the Supreme Lord is described as having no qualities, this should be understood to indicate that he is devoid of material qualities. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, O Dharma, protector of religious principles, all noble and sublime qualities are eternally manifested in the person of Krishna. And devotees and transcendentalists who aspire to become faithful also desire to possess such transcendental qualities. It is therefore to be understood that Lord Sri Krishna, the transcendental form of absolute bliss, is a fountainhead of all pleasurable transcendental qualities and inconceivable potencies. In this connection, we may recommend references to Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 26, verses 21, 25, 27, and 28.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this argument is in relation to Krishna's qualities. So they're thinking on the one hand that um, because in the material world, everything has qualities, right? So they're thinking that if spirit is the opposite of matter, that means that spiritual things must have no qualities. So they use the word nirguna to describe. And in Shastra also, Krishna is described as nirguna, but Prabhupada is saying it doesn't mean that he doesn't have any qualities. It means that he doesn't have any material qualities. He's not affected by the gunas, right? Like tamaguna, rajaguna, sattvaguna. He's beyond the gunas. He's near guna, not influenced by any mode of the three material modes of nature. So, but he has his own qualities, which are actually none different from himself. right? Krishna's knowledge is not different from himself. His opulence is not different from himself. All these things, just like Krishna's body is not different from himself. That everything with, see, we have certain qualities now that's based on our conditioning, and we can sometimes our qualities can change, right, due to our experiences and different things that happen to us in life. We, like a person who was once very optimistic and joyful can become bitter and grumpy or whatever, and vice versa. So, but Krishna doesn't change, right? He has his 64 transcendental qualities, and he's had those qualities forever, and those are his qualities. That's who he is. He's not like, he's like this, but then, the gopis go to him one day and like, Krishna, you've changed. You're not the person that we fell in love with years ago, That doesn't happen. That happens in the material world, right? That would definitely be a plot twist.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Krishna's just always the same. He has his qualities, and that's who he is because they're non-different from him. So, yeah, that's a big difference between us and Krishna. But the Mayavadis, because they can't appreciate that Krishna is a transcendental person, then they just keep thinking about him as a material person who either can't exist as a person or has to exist as a material person. They just can't understand that there could be a transcendental person who is beyond the modes of nature, whose form is spiritual, whose qualities are spiritual, who is, like totally everything is just himself. And that all of his expansions from him are also him. It's like they can't understand it. But for devotees, it's easy to understand. Okay. So Prabhupada gives some recommended reading here from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto. Okay, let's go ahead. Yes.
Sripad Ramanujacharya has also refuted the arguments of Sankara in his own commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which is known as the Sri Bhashya. Sripad Sankaracharya has tried to equate Pancharatras with the philosophy of atheist Kapila. Thus, he has tried to prove that the Pancharatras contradict the Vedic injunctions. The Pancharatras state that the personality of Jiva called Sankarshana has emerged from Vasudeva, the supreme cause of all causes. And that Parjuma, the mind, has come from Sankarshana, and that Anuruddha, ego, that has come from Prajuna. But one cannot say that the living entity Jiva takes birth or is created, but such a statement is against injection of the Vedas. As stated in the Katha Upanishads, the living entities and individual spirit souls can have neither birth nor death. All Vedic literature declares that the living entities are eternal. Therefore, when it is said that the Sankarshana is Jiva, this indicates that he is the predominating deity of the living entities. Similarly, Prajunma is the predominant deity of the mind. Anuruddha is the predominant deity of the ego.
Yeah, so this is, so they're misunderstanding. It says that Sankarshan is the predominant deity of the living entities. They take it to mean that he is a living entity. It's kind of like, we know that Lord Shiva is the presiding deity of the mode of ignorance. But sometimes you hear devotees mistakenly saying that Lord Shiva is in the mode of ignorance. Lord Shiva is never in the mode of ignorance, but he's in charge of all the beings that are in the mode of ignorance, and he makes use of the mode of ignorance in his service of destroying, because the mode of ignorance, from mode of ignorance, is destructive tendency. So he engages the mode of ignorance in basically in the service of the Lord, but he's never in the mode of ignorance. So it's a similar misunderstanding here.
It's like a jailer. Jailer has to.
Yeah, he spends all day in jail.
Yeah.
And if you say, oh yeah, how such and such lately? Oh yeah, they're in jail. It's true he's in jail, but he's not in jail. He's like managing the jail, or he's, a guard in the jail, or administrator in the jail. He's not in jail, even though he's in jail. So it's misunderstanding. Okay, Aruna?
It has been said that Pradyumna, the mind was produced from Sankarsana. But if Sankarsana were a living entity, this could not be accepted because the living entity cannot be the cause of the mind. The Vedic injunction states that everything, including life, mind, and the senses, comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is impossible for the mind to be produced by a living entity, for the Vedas state that everything comes from the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord.
I'll just make a so this is another contradiction. They say that Sankarshan is a jiva, but then turn around and say, but from Sankarshan comes Vasudev, and from Vasudev comes Pradyumna, and so forth. So how can all those things be coming from a jiva? Right, so it's contradictory. Okay, go ahead.
Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha have all the potent features of the Absolute Personality of Godhead, according to the revealed scriptures, which contains undeniable facts that no one can refute. Therefore, these members of the quadruple manifestations are never to be considered ordinary living beings. Each of them is a planetary expansion of the Absolute Godhead, and thus each is identical with the Supreme Lord in knowledge, opulence, energy, influence, prowess, and potencies. The evidence of the Pancharatras cannot be neglected. Only untrained persons who have not genuinely studied the Pancharatras think that Pancharatras contradict the Shrutis regarding the birth or beginning of the living entity. In this connection, we must accept the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, which says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Vasudeva, and who is very affectionate towards his surrendered devotees, expands himself in quadruple forms who are subordinate to them and at the same time identical with them in all respects. The Bhaskara Samhita states, the scriptures that recommended that Brahmanas worship the quadruple forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are called Agamas, authorized Vedic literatures. In all Vaishnava literature, it is said that worshipping this quadruple form is as good as worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, who in his different expanses complete in 6 opulences, can accept offerings from his devotees of the result of their prescribed duties. Worshipping the expansions for pastimes such as Narsimha, Rama, Sesha, and Kurma promotes one to the worship of the Sankarsana quadruple. From that position, one is raised to the platform of worshipping Vasudeva, the Supreme Brahman. In the Puraskara Samhita, it is said, if one fully worships according to the regulated principles, one can attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. It is to be accepted that Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are as good as Lord Vasudeva, for they all have inconceivable power and can accept transcendental forms like Vasudeva. Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are never born, but they can manifest themselves in various incarnations before the eyes of pure devotees. This is the conclusion of all Vedic literature, that the Lord can manifest himself before his devotees by his inconceivable power is not against the teaching of the Pancharatras. Since Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are respectively the predominating deities of all living entities, the total mind and the total ego, the designation of the Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha as Shiva, mind, and ego is never contradictory to the statements of the scriptures. These terms identify these deities, just as the terms sky and light sometimes identify the absolute Brahman.
So one thing to note here is that the scriptures are always in agreement with each other. So if we come across some statement of the scripture that seems to be like opposed to another statement of the scripture, then we need to understand it better. So what the Mayavadis do is they'll read something from one scripture, they'll misinterpret in their own way, and then they'll say, oh, this scripture contradicts this scripture, so that scripture can't be correct. Then they reject the scripture. So it's like, wait, they think the scripture is wrong. They don't stop and think, oh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe my understanding was wrong. Maybe my interpretation was wrong, because the Shastra has to be right. So, yeah, we have to, when we come across some contradiction, we have to slow down, look at the context, and see what the intention is there, and try to understand it better. Because the scriptures are all aligned, they're all harmonious. Okay, Pragati.
The scriptures completely deny the birth or production of the living entity. In the Param Samhita, it is described that material nature, which is used for others' purposes, is factually inert and always subject to transformation. The field of material nature is the arena of the activities of fruitive actors, and since the material field is externally related with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is also eternal. In every Samhita, the Jiva, living entity, has been accepted as eternal, and in the Pancharatras, the birth of the Jiva is completely denied. Anything that is produced must also be annihilated. Therefore, if we accept the birth of the living entity, we also have to accept his annihilation. But since the Vedic literature say that the living entity is eternal, one should not think the living being to be produced at a certain time. In the beginning of the Param Samhita, it is definitely stated that the face of material nature is constantly changeable. Therefore, beginning, annihilation, and all such terms are applicable only in the material nature.
Yeah. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says there's two categories of things, asat and sat. So things that are sat or eternal, they're always eternal. It's not that they were temporary and they became eternal. And things that are temporary, they're always temporary. They don't become eternal. And so, yeah, it's not that something didn't exist and then at some point in, on the eternal timeline, it came into existence, right? Krishna says that never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us ever cease to be, right? We always existed, we always will exist. And as opposed to material things, which are temporary, they're never going to be eternal, right? Like this table is just never going to be eternal. There's nothing that I can do to it that's going to make it become eternal. It is somehow really going to be broken or rot away or be burnt or whatever. It's going to be destroyed. This body also, there's nothing I can do. Even Walt Disney, with all of his millions and billions of dollars, he was trying to make his body immortal by putting it in the freezer and all this stuff. Anyways, there's nothing that you can do to make your body eternal. And there's nothing that you can do to kill your soul, right? Because the soul is sat and the body is asat. And that's just what it is. So, yeah, that's the point that he's making here.
So, if we say that the soul is eternal, it is like Krishna was the first, and every soul is expanded after, like in a hierarchy, or
No, it's not like that. That's what he's saying. It's not that there was a time where there was only Krishna and then we at different times in history came out of him, like the way babies are born from a mother, right? Like at the time there's only the woman is there by herself and then, then she gets married and she has a baby and then after a couple of years she has another baby and it's not like that. Right? It's that we always existed. There was never a time when we didn't exist.
it's good to like feel that we are eternal.
Yeah. Okay.
So as to the
Yeah, and we take all these things so seriously and we get so upset and so flustered and so anxious. And it's like these things are like a fraction of a lightning flash.
They forget.
Yeah. And then after, even in this lifetime, after 5-10 years, it's like, oh yeah, that happened. Like
Yeah.
somebody reminds us, oh yeah, I kind of remember that happening. And at the time we were like, this is the worst tragedy ever.
That's what happens. Forget.
Yeah. So
no problem. Big.
everything is just coming and going, like castles in the sand.
We forget.
We build a whole big thing up, either materially, like we build a building, we build an empire, we build a relationship, we build a community, we build a whole false ego, we build our identity, we build our bodies, and then a wave comes in and gone.
We should do that after Eternals.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we're almost done this purport.
Yes.
Is reading, Kritika? I think we're considering all these points. Are you with us, Kritika? She stepped out. How about you,
Yes.
Divya? Oh, Kritika's there.
Sorry.
We
Sorry.
are
Are we reading the scriptures completely denied?
the next one, considering all these points.
Considering all these points, one should understand that Shankaracharya's statement that Sankarshan is born as a jiva is completely against the Vedic statements. His assertions are completely refuted by the above arguments. In this connection, The commentary of Sridhar Swami on Srimad Bhagavatam 3.134 is very helpful. For a detailed refutation of Shankaracharya's argument attempting to prove Sankarshan, an ordinary living being, one may refer to Srimad Sundarsanacharya's commentary on Sri Bhastya, which is known as Shruta Prakashika.
Okay. Divya, next paragraph.
The original quadruple forms, Krishna, Baladev, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, expand into another quadruple, which is present in the Vaikuntha planets of the spiritual sky. Therefore, the quadruple forms in the spiritual sky are the second manifestation of the original quadruple in Dwarka. As explained above, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh are all changeless, transcendental plenary expansions of the Supreme Lord, who have no relation to the material modes. The Sankarshan form is the second quadruple. The Sankarshan form in the second quadruple is not only a representation of Balaram, but also the original cause of the causal ocean where Karnodakshai Vishnu lies asleep, breathing out the seeds of innumerable universes.
So this is interesting that, see, there's two different Chaturvyuhas. So the first one is in Dwarka, in Goloka. So in Goloka, there's Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka. And then, so that's the Goloka planet, right? And then the spiritual sky, they're all the Vaikuntha planets. So the original quadruple forms, because Vasudev is also a name for Krishna, right? Son of Vasudeva. And then Sankarshan is also a name for Balaram. When Gargamuni came and did the name giving ceremony, he gave that name to Lord Balaram because Lord Balaram brought together the two families. So the original Vasudev is Krishna, the original Sankarshan is Baladev, Pradyumna is Krishna's oldest son in Dwarka, right? The son of Rukmini. And Aniruddha is another son. I can't remember who his mother is, but he ended up marrying Usha. So if you read Krishna book, which you're going to be reading Krishna book soon, right? Starting next week. If you get to these later pastimes, then you'll read about the pastimes of Pradyumna and Aniruddha. It's very exciting. So they are in Dwarka, and then they expand themselves into their Vaikuntha forms, which Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. So they're the same personalities. It's like plenary expansions, but they have a different mood because they're in the Vaikuntha mood. Just like Krishna expands himself into Vishnu, but Krishna and Vishnu have different mood. So that Krishna, the first Vishnu expansion, is Vasudeva, who lives in Vasudeva, who presides over Vaikuntha planets. Okay, Nikesh?
In the spiritual sky, there is a spiritual creative energy, technically called Shuddha Sattva, which is a pure spiritual energy that sustains all the Vaikuntha planets with the full opulences of knowledge, wealth, prowess, etc. All these actions of Shuddha Sattva display the potencies of Mahasankarsana, who is the ultimate reservoir of all individual living entities who are suffering in the material world. When the cosmic creation is annihilated, the living entities who are indestructible by nature rest in the body of Mahasankarsana. Sankarsana is therefore sometimes called the total jiva. As spiritual sparks, the living entities have the tendency to be inactive in the association of the material energy, just as sparks of a fire have the tendency to be extinguished as soon as they leave the fire. The spiritual nature of the living being can be rekindled, however, in association with the Supreme Being, because the living being can appear either in matter or in spirit. The jiva is called the marginal potency.
You can just read that last little sentence too.
Yeah. Sankarasana is the origin of Karana Vishnu, who is the original form who creates the universes, and that Sankarasana is but a plenary expansion of Sri Nityananda Rama.
Yeah, so in the second to last paragraph, Srila Prabhupada's contrasting the living, the actual jivas with all these Vishnu Tattva expansions that they're always spiritual, but for us, sometimes we're in the spiritual energy and the Shuddha Sattva, and sometimes we're in the material energy due to our smallness as spiritual sparks, right? We have this tendency to sometimes leave the fire and be extinguished. Our consciousness, not that the soul is ever extinguished, but our spiritual consciousness becomes extinguished, but it can also be rekindled, can light the spark again, and the spark can be enlightened by association with the Lord. And then he says, so we've been talking a lot about all these different Vishnu Tattva expansions, and then Srila Prabhupada ends by saying, all of these are but plenary expansions of Lord Nityananda. So that's why we're talking about them, is because we're learning about the glories of Lord Nityananda. So all of these different Vishnu expansions, they're all coming from Lord Nityananda. Okay, we finished the purport to text 41. Haribo. And then now we're going to take a pause in our Caitanya Charitamrita reading, and they're going to pick up with the Krishna book starting on Monday. And Pragati's going to share that. Oh, do you need to use my Zoom link? You can borrow my Zoom link. Okay, so the Zoom link will be the same, I think. We'll figure out a way to try to have the same Zoom link. Otherwise, she'll share the Zoom link, and but you'll be live streaming from your own YouTube channel. So if you want to, if you want to tune in live stream, then you have to go to www.pragati. What is it? Go to YouTube. What's your name on YouTube, Pragati? What is it? Huh?
It says the other.
What do you mean the other way? Oh, it's actually called the other way? Okay, so you have to go to YouTube and type in the search box the other way. No. Anyways, maybe you don't want to look at the other things that she has there, but you can tune into the Krishna book reading. Okay. You can see all Pragati's secrets on YouTube. Who do we have here? Oh, Hare Krishna movement saying, Hare Krishna Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai, Hare Krishna, and all glories to the Hare Krishna movement. So, thank you all very much. And we'll resume in January, maybe shortly after the new year, right? January 2nd or 3rd, something like that, right? After Kirtan 50. If we're feeling enthusiastic, we might start on January 1st, just to kick the new year off right. But maybe, why not? The Kirtan 50 ends around noonish, right? Like in afternoon. Pushpabhishek is at noon, and then there's a feast, and then it's done.
Yeah.
We could do it. Let's see if we're up for it. We might be dead, tired. Yeah. So maybe we can aim more for the 2nd. We'll let you know. Okay, Srila Krishna's Kaviraj ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.